Hey there, it's Kathy with Be Creative with Kathy, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Denver, Colorado, and I have a really cute card for you today, and I thought it would be easiest to show you in the catalog here which stamp set that I'm going to use. So I'm going to go here to page 44, yep, and 45 right here. I'm going to use this stamp, well, I'm going to use both of these stamp sets. And this one, of course, for all the images, which look how cute. And I don't know if you realized or not, but this is a two-step stamp. You can two-step the pine cones, you can two-step the leaves, you can two-step the berry branch thingy, whatever that is. And then on the coordinating stamp set is this one with all the words. And then in the die set, which, like, see if I show you like this, look at what a mess that looks like. But it has all these labels in there. In fact, we're going to use this one today that coordinate with this stamp set with all the words. So see, we're going to use that stamp set and that stamp that coordinate together. Now, this dies you can find on page 174, and then of course the stamp sets you can find on 44 or 45, or you can just Google Christmas season or Christmas to remember, Christmas maybe, and you'd find all those on my online store. And of course the link would be below. So if you don't have a demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator. Of course, if you have questions about anything, you let me know. And all the measurements and supply list will be on my blog, becreativewithkathy.com, which, yes, is fixed and up and running. Yay! Okay. So let me show you the pieces of cardstock that we're going to use. We don't need a lot of cardstock for this card. We're going to just give it depth with stamping. So I made a bunch of these. These were my swap for my team this month. So I have a piece, first of all, this here is real red, 8.5 by 5.5. So it's just a half a sheet of cardstock. And I've scored it here at 4 1/4. So that's going to be our card base. And then I have two sheets here of basic white. They're both the same size. 5 1/4 by 4. Of course, one's going to be the inside and one's going to be the front. And of course, all right, that's all the paper or all the cardstock that we need for this card. So I'm going to set my base. Well, let's go ahead and fold my base. That way, when it's time to put it together, he'll be ready. Use my bone folder, get that nice crisp fold there, and bring in these two. Now, we're really going to start. This is going to be the front. And I'm going to put piece of scratch paper. Let me find a better one that's not quite so dirty. Here, oh, look, this is a brand spanking new one. We'll use that one. And I'm gonna, oh, and you know what? Totally not gonna do that first. Got ahead of myself. We're gonna bring in some masking paper. Now, masking paper is new to Stampin' Up. It's a really thin paper that's like a double-sided Post-it note, but it's one full sheet. And we need to cut this to the size of our label. So I'm going to bring in my die cut machine here and my plates. So we need, of course, platform number 1, plate number 2, cutting pad number 3, and I like to put the one that's really chewed up or scarred up on the bottom. And then I'm going to lay my masking paper. Now you can see the masking paper has this seam right here down the center. That's how you can remove the paper easier. So I'm going to set my die so that it goes through that seam, if you can see right there. And then that way when we take the backing off, it's just easier to remove. And then I'm going to put a clear cutting pad on top there and just run that through, and now we have a piece of masking paper that is the size of the die that we wanted. Let me put this away. Okay, let me put this away. Now on that piece of cardstock, there we go, now this is better. I'm going to take those backs off of that masking paper. Now really there's a backing, I guess you'd say, on both sides. So I'm going to take that and put that right down here. I'm going to try to get it centered pretty good on my paper. Yeah, I'm going to say, no, I think it needs to go a little bit. It is sticky stuff and very thin. And I think the thin makes it so when you stamp on it, you don't get those edges. And if you've done masking like this before, I don't know if it's straight that time either. It's good enough. Okay, so there's on there. But like I was saying, when you stamp with like a Post-it note or something, the Post-it note is thicker and you get that edge of stamping to where the masking paper is so thin. I don't think that happens. Now we're going to bring our scratch paper in. I'm going to use a blending brush, and I'm going to bring in a really light green, which is Seafoam, soft Seafoam green. And I'm going to just ink up my blending brush. And now I'm going to tap using that masking paper to kind of get the dark off, and it didn't even, it's good. And then I'm going to just go around in a circle here around the edges and get, there we go, that's a little bit more ink here. And just get the edges, or make most of my cardstock a really light green. And now you probably won't be able to see a lot of it. That's just how light it's going to be. But I'm going to go, then I'm going to turn my paper, because that way I tend to get heavy-sided on one, and now it'll be even. And I might turn my paper a couple more times. We might get some more ink out here. Like I said, I'm going to just put a little bit of color on my paper, and that light Seafoam green won't get too dark. Okay, a little bit here in the corners, and I think we're good. So it's going to be different every time. Oops, and I think now that I look at it, yeah, I think we're good to go just like that. And like I said, you might not see a lot of color on there, but in the long run, it's going to work out just right. Okay, so then with my stamps, and I'll bring the stamp set so you can see what stamps I'm using. And we're going to start with this, I'm going to call it Sprig, right here, and some shaded spruce ink. Now, with this card, I'll be honest with you, the hardest part, because we're going to stamp multiple times on our card, the hardest part is to keep the edges of your blocks clean so you don't get the edge on your paper. And I know if you're a stamper, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm making sure my edges are clean. I have my little cloth here in case they don't. Now, I like to use a dry cloth and I can wipe it off. If you use a baby wipe, it's like wet cloth with wet ink, and that gets your fingers really yucky. So I'm going to use a nice dry soft cloth in case I need it. But I'm going to try really hard to not get ink on the edges of my block. Okay, so la-di-da-di. So then I'm going to come and stamp that once there. Make sure that ink sinks in nice. And here. And again, I said that was shaded spruce ink, a nice dark green. And then I'm going to do the same thing up here in this corner. And look how pretty, just so far, so Christmassy. Okay, then we're going to change colors now. And we're going to go to the, this leaf. No, I'm sorry. We're going to go to this leaf here with some garden green. And that's this leaf here. And this one, I'm going to just take and kind of stamp. Now, I'm kind of looking toward the corner here and the edge here. And I'm going to stamp this right there. And you know what I should have? I should have my Pierce mat. But, well, in fact, I'm going to get it because I'm going to be sorry later if I don't have it in there. There, I'm just going to tuck it under there. And I just use my Pierce mat from, or the pad for my Stamparatus. And that gives me a nice, okay. Then I'm going to do the same thing over down here. A little bit of ink. And again, that's garden green in that sprig color there. Okay. Next color is Old Olive. And in Old Olive, I'm going to two-stamp this right here. Believe it or not, this sprig here, you stamp this one on top of this one, and it gives the leaf a whole nother color. And I think it's easier to stamp the darker color first, so I'm going to stamp what I think most people would call the second step first. And I'm going to ink it up in that Old Olive, and right up here in this corner, maybe about there. I want to make sure it all shows. I'm going to stamp that. Nice. And then I'm going to do the same thing in this corner here. Maybe about there. Nice. Okay. Then with the second stamp that looks like this, I'm going to stamp off, and I'm going to stamp it off and hold that ink, let that ink really sink into my scratch paper here. And then when I line it up, you can look, I might get my head in the camera, but you can look through your stamp and line up that stem and all those leaves, and then look how pretty this looks when it's got that two-step stamping. Isn't that a totally pretty different kind of leaf? Okay, let's do it again on this one. Same thing. There we go. And then on this card, I want to do the same thing on the inside. This is going to be my inside piece, so I'm going to go ahead and stamp that stem there. And then do the second step right here. And just line it up, and look how pretty now the inside of my card so far is. Okay, now we need to add just a little bit more color, but I'm going to start with the stem. So I'm going to take some of this soft suede and the little stem, move this out of the way, the little stem stamp that looks like this, that goes with those berries. Let me move some stuff out of the way. Okay, and I said this is soft suede, and on this one I'm going to kind of fill in the little area right here. And then I'm going to put another one over here, and then I'm going to do the same thing to this side. Still making sure, see how I have the corner over here? Got a little bit of ink on there. I'm going to wipe that off, ink it up again, making sure that the corners of my ink, or of my block, excuse me, are clean so they don't get, this one on my card. There we go. So far so good, right? Oh, and while I have the soft suede out, I'm going to go ahead and stamp the inside of my card. And now I'm going to use that other stamp set, this one here, just that Merry Christmas. And this one is a red rubber stamp, so I don't need that matte under there. I'm going to take that out and then just stamp that Merry Christmas. Try to get it straight right there, and let that ink sink in just a little bit. And then there, now I have the inside of my card. Now the cool thing I think about the inside of my card is I have the greens in there, I have the brown on there, and then when you put it in, you also have the pretty red, so that gives your inside like the multiple colors. That looks really good. And I'm going to go ahead and put this in since I got it right here. Let's just go ahead and just put that inside of our card. Okay, now let's take some more of that red, real red ink now. And we're going to stamp those berries. Let me get stuff out of the way here. The berries onto, lost my card, the stem. And that's the berries right here that are the two-step of this stamp. And I might have to turn my stamp a little bit to line it up. Nope, look, I got it right the first time. Oh, and where's that pad? I'm going to put that matte under my paper again, since it's photopolymer. Sometimes you need that pad. And I'm going to take my time and make sure I can see just the bottom of the sprigs through the bottoms of my berries. Or maybe it's the top of the sprigs through the bottoms of my berries, but I don't know. Did I get my head in the camera? Look at that, how pretty that is. Again, I'm making sure, crossing my fingers on that one, that I don't have any ink on the corner, so I don't want to get any ink on my paper where I don't want it. Around that to the berries. Did I get the berry? Oh yeah, I lined that one up nice. Last one, here we go. Oh, and look, I have ink on my block. Yay, not on my paper. I should have wiped that off. In fact, I'm going to do it now. Okay, but now we're good. So that's what I would do for the front of our card. Then, now this paper, the masking paper that I put on there is really saturated with ink. So then I would set that aside and let it dry. Okay, so then for just the video to make it go a little faster, I had, yep, here, I have one that I've done in advance. It looks just, ooh, I did about the exact same job. but this one is all dry. I'm going to take this all out of the way. We don't need that anymore. And now I'm going to take that masking paper off and look at the results that we get. Now, like I said, this masking paper is really thin, so you're not going to have a border from where you stamped on your paper with the ink, but I'm going to be really careful when I take it off. And see how I kind of lay it on itself and just roll it? This is the best way, I believe, and I do think it comes off a lot better after you let that ink dry. But look how pretty now in the center of that card front, we have a total tag right there. Okay, so now we're going to bring in that last stamp, which is this one here, the love that coordinated with the die that we used. Bring in that soft suede ink again. I'm going to practice once just because I have all that stamping done. The last thing I want is for this not to stamp perfect. Okay, nice practice. Let's do the same thing right here on the inside of that label. It looks good about there. I'm going to set it down, and I'm not putting a lot of pressure, but I'm holding it firm, especially on the inside where that ink needs to sink into the paper and get a nice firm even touch on my block. And look how pretty. Dang, that's good stamping today. Way to go, Kathy. All right, so there we go. So now I'm going to go ahead and take this and layer this on the front of our card. Now, if you wanted quick, simple to mail Christmas cards, you could stop right there. That would take just a regular postage stamp, 53 cents. You could mail 53, 54, whatever it costs. I don't ever use regular stamps. I always use the butterfly stamps because I always have bumps, like I'll call it, on my card that takes the other 23 cents, no, 23 ounce cents, whatever the more expensive stamps it is, but so or stamp on your envelope. But anyway, let's go on. So I'm going to keep going. I want to put a bow on there, so I'm going to bring in my bow maker, and I think I want my bow to be about as big as the base of my label down here. So I'm going to set my bow maker like that. Bring in some of this, what is this called? Real Red and Garden Green Ribbon Combo Pack. Love this stuff. It ties really nice. And I'm going to just wrap it around my bow maker here. You could just tie a simple bow. It'd be the same thing. I think it's a little easier and faster. Well, if you don't drop your ribbon. So video sake, so you don't have to sit and watch, I'm going to just use my bow maker and tie a simple bow here. Make sure it's in the center, get it really tight, slide that off. And some scissors that I save on these scissors for ribbon. I mark them with a little piece of ribbon on the handle, and look, they cut that ribbon like butter. And then I'm going to take, in fact, I'm going to turn this over, and I'm going to put, oh, which side do I like better? No, this is going to be the back. I'm going to just take 3 glue dots because I want it to stay really good. So one right here on the back of my knot, one right here on each side. That's going to hold my bow right here at the bottom of my label really nice. Oh, and my glue dot came off, so I guess we're just using 2. There we go. Make that look good. We need to trim those ends just a little bit. Try to get them even. And look how cute that is. Now, with the Christmas cards, you always have to have that little touch of gold. So I'll show you. For my swap for my team, right, that's what this card was. I did the little champagne rhinestones. Champagne, what are those called? Yep, champagne rhinestones, which are really pretty. But then in the catalog now, we have these new red-green adhesive back pearls. Although I think, and I should check in the catalog, I think they have a little bit of a different name that's on the package. But you'll find them in there. They have the real red, the pool party silver, and gold. They're really pretty. And I'm going to just put 5 of them because you got to have an odd number here. and just sprinkle those on my card. And then we have that really pretty gold that I think green, red, and gold are the traditional Christmas colors. And look how pretty that is. There you go. So there's my card. Here's one more. And you can see all the different stamping. Now, let me show you a sample. See if I can come out. Here's a perfect example. Here's what I was talking about, that sometimes when you don't keep the corners of your block clean, you'll get little stuff like that. Now, I don't know if you would have noticed it if I would have pointed it out, but that was the kind of stuff that I was trying to avoid with my card today. Alrighty, so again, if you want the supply list or the card measurements, they'll all be on my blog, BeCreativeWithKathy.com. If you ever have any questions, be sure and reach out. If you watch me here on Facebook, I would love for you to like my page and make a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, if you'd please subscribe, click that bell, you'll get reminders when my next video is posted, and then I'd love to hear comments about what you think of my cards. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you back here on Monday. Bye-bye.